Hi everyone, this is Heather Groshinsky over at the middle school. I'm here today with a tutorial on the basics of how to use Google Docs. So this is a really good tutorial for people who have maybe used Microsoft Word a little bit in the past, but are maybe a little leery about using Google Docs, or just really haven't used Google Docs much and just want to know the very basics. The tutorial that I'm going to show you today is going to walk you through how to access Google Docs from your email, and then I'm going to show you how to actually open and create a new document, and then I'm going to show you how to change some of the font, change the size of the text, color, using bold, italicized. Again, just some of the basic things that you might need to know when creating a document. I'm also going to show you the basics of how to change margins, and then I'll wrap it up by showing you how to send that document as an email attachment to somebody else. So let's go ahead and get started. Right now I'm actually on the Portage Staff Resources page. So you can access your Gmail, of course, through the Staff Resources page by hovering on the title Staff Resources and clicking Google. The other option to access it right now is just to scroll down and find Google alphabetically. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. It will ask you to sign into your Portage account. Mine's already signed in, so it's just kind of pulled it up for me. So to actually get to your Google Docs or your Google Drive from here, you're going to click this waffle button, or it's the apps button. It looks like a waffle to me, so I call it the waffle button. So if you click on it, there shows you all the apps that we have access to through the Portage School District. There are more, of course, down here, but for today we're just going to be accessing Drive. So I'm going to click that. And in Drive you are going to find how to create a Word document. You can also create a spreadsheet. You can create a presentation similar to PowerPoint through Drive. But for today's tutorial, again, I'm just going to be showing you how to create a document. So now that your Drive is open, you can go ahead and create a new document by clicking Create on the left. Again, document, here's where you would find some of the other things you can create. But a document is going to be very similar to Microsoft Word, which you've probably used in the past. Microsoft Word has a couple of extra functionalities that Google Docs does not, and there's a couple workarounds. One example that I can think of is columns. You can't really add specific columns in Google Docs. They want you to use Spreadsheet for that, but I do have a couple workarounds that we can talk about in a more advanced tutorial. So because this is a very basic tutorial, the first thing I'm going to show you is how to change the name of your document. As a default, it's going to come up as an untitled document, which you can see the name of it right here, and you can see the name of it on the tab here that I have open. So I'm actually going to get in the habit of changing that right away, because if you have too many documents that have the same name of untitled document, it gets hard to find things later. So if you change the name of it right away and get in that habit, it's going to be a lot easier for organizing things later. So now that I've clicked that, it gives me the option to rename it. I'm just going to call this Tutorial 1. Click OK. And you'll notice that the name of it changed here, and also in my tab where I showed you before. The other thing you might notice is that it now says all changes saved in Drive. The really nice function of Google Drive over Microsoft Office is that it does save automatically for you every few seconds. So worrying about saving all the time isn't as much of a concern in Google, so that's very nice to have. So now that that is saved and my document has been renamed, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to do some things with your text. So you'll notice that if you start typing, your text is always going to default to Arial as the font name. The size is usually going to default to an 11 unless you've changed settings somewhere else. And then you also have some things here like bold, italic, underline, text color. So these are the basic things that I'm going to be using today. It also gives you the shortcuts like Control and V, Control I, and Control U for those three functions. That is different on a Mac. I'm using a PC, so I believe it's Command V, Command I, and Command U if I'm correct. So I can go ahead and start typing, but just to speed things up, I actually have some text that I've copied from another document that I'm just going to paste in. So I'm just going to Control V or Command V if you're on the Mac, and that's going to paste the text that I've copied from before. Now this is text that I just copied. I have a generic sub document that I have ready to go for when I need a sub, and at the top of it, it gives you just this little introduction for the sub to kind of tell them where some of the emergency procedures and things like that are. So that's the text I'm going to be using today. The first thing I can show you is how to actually change the text type or the font type. And I'm going to actually change the whole thing. You can select just parts of it or you can do the whole thing. It's kind of up to how you want it to look. So I want to change all of my font from Arial to something else. So it does give you this whole list of options. And it does actually show you in this drop down kind of what it's going to look like on your document. And you'll see that some are smaller than others, bigger than others. It also, you'll notice, saved some of your favorite ones at the top. So if you use certain fonts a lot, it's going to kind of find that out and it's going to track that for you so that you can change it a little bit more easily by keeping it at the top. I'm going to change it to Calibri today. So that looks good. And then if I want to change the size of it, let's go ahead and change the whole thing. I still have the entire piece of text selected, as you can see. I'm going to change it, make it a little bigger to a size 12 font, let's say. So there I go. I've got my text. I have changed the type of text from Arial to Calibri, and I've changed it from an 11 size to a 12 size. You can also actually click up here and change it to any number you want. You can change it to 102. Actually, you need to select it first. There we go. But obviously that's going to be very big. I can change it to size 5 if I want, which is very small. It actually rounded up to a 6. It tends to go with even sizes for the most part. So I'm going to change it to a more reasonable size. So again, I'm going to go back to 12. And yeah, like I said, you can type it in here, or you can actually click the drag down for some more standard font sizes here. So now that I've changed the size and it looks to be the size that I want it to, next thing I need to do is highlight some of the important parts of this document. So the first thing I'm going to show the sub, and I want to highlight for my sub, is thank you for coming in today. So I might bold that. And then let's say I want to actually make that kind of like a title. I can just hit space, move the rest of my text down, and then up here you can change the alignment of your text. So right now I'm left aligned, which means that all of my text lines up to the left side. I can change that to all or some of my text by highlighting what I want to change, and I can center it, which looks really nice for adding titles. So if you're creating like a study guide or something for your students and you want a title for it, you are going to want to center that. So I've put that centered. You can also put it along the right side, which is going to line it up along the right. Justify is more for paragraphs, and what it's going to do is, as you'll notice, this side is straight and this side is sort of wavy. It's actually going to make both sides straight, and so that just kind of increases some of the spacing in between so that both are all the way over. So for the purposes of this tutorial, like I said, I'm going to use left align, which is most popular, but I am going to center this part of my text. And then there's a part of this that I really want to highlight. I give my sub some information on how to access my username and password for my computer so that they can get on some of the things that they might need. But I want to make sure that they know that this is not something that I want my students to see. So I have it noted in here, be sure to keep this info out of reach of students. And so I might want to make that very obvious to the sub. So I'm going to maybe bold it by clicking the B button or hitting Control B. I can also italicize it by hitting the italic button, Control I, and that'll make it slanted or italic. I can also underline it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and underline it, but then I also really want it to stand out, so I'm going to change the color of it. So right now everything is black, and if I really want it to pop, I'm going to maybe change it to a bright color. So I can click down on this drop down. Right now it shows this bar is black. That's the color that it's in right now. So if I click that, I have just that part of the text highlighted, and I can go ahead and change it to maybe a red, and that's maybe going to stand out a little bit better when the sub is reading this if I printed it in color. So that's how to change the basics of font. Those are just the very basics that you're going to need to know to use Google Docs or any word processing software. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to change the margins. Now you might want to change margins for a few reasons. Maybe you want a little bit less white space on your page. If you can see, my margins are this white space along the sides and the top, and then also the bottom if you ever get to a full page, which obviously I'm not, my document right now is not a full page, but it would also be that same size on the bottom. These margins automatically default to a 1-inch size in Google Docs, but I can change that. Sometimes I change margins if I have a document that goes onto it's only a page, but then it maybe has a couple sentences or a couple words that are on a second page. So rather than print 2 pages, I can actually change my margins a little bit, and then I can fit it onto 1 page. So to change margins, I'm going to the File and Page Setup, which is the second from the bottom. And here you have a lot of different options. Your first set of options are the orientation of your page. That's how it's going to print. So if I were to print this and it's portrait, it's going to look like this, up and down. If I'm printing landscape, it's going to be side to side like this. So because this is just a standard document, I'm going to use portrait, and most of your documents probably will be. My margins are going to be, I'm going to actually change them to a 1/2 inch. Right now they're at 1 inch. So it wants you to use decimals, 0.5 all the way around. Here I can also change the page color. That would actually change the background of my page. So right now it's white. So my text is black, my background is white. You can change the background to colors, but I wouldn't recommend it if you're printing. So if you want to just jazz up a document that maybe you're just sharing with your students that isn't actually going to be printed, because color obviously takes a lot of ink or any kind of background. So I'm keeping it white for this tutorial. I'm going to click OK. And you'll notice that my text spread out. So my margins on my sides are now 1/2 inch instead of 1 inch. And also same thing on the top because I changed all of those. You can just change the side margins, you can just change top and bottom, or just one. It's kind of up to you. But again, the biggest reason I use margin change for sizing is just to fit things onto fewer pages. Now the only caution I have for you with using a 1/2 inch margin is that if you're planning on having this 3-hole punched, sometimes with the 1/2 inch margin it goes into the area where a 3-hole punch would cover. So you might actually punch out part of some words on your document. So if you're just using this to have it sent to somebody without being printed, or you're not planning on 3-hole punching it, it should be fine. But I wouldn't recommend it if you're planning on having your students 3-hole punch it, because then it cuts off part of the directions or part of the words. So that's the basics of using that. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to send this off to somebody. So let's say that this is a parent letter, or let's say I'm going to email this to my sub ahead of time because I want them to look at the plans beforehand. So to email it to them, and I'm going to assume they don't have Google Drive. So if they have Google Drive, of course I can share it with them, which I'll show you in another the intermediate tutorial. But I just want to send it to somebody, and I have their email address. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to email it as an attachment. And that's going to bring up this screen. I don't want to attach it as an HTML. Basically what that's going to do is it's going to just show the text. And sometimes that messes with the formatting, so I don't usually use that. I actually usually use PDF. PDF is going to be an image, so they won't be able to edit it without a PDF editor. And most people don't use PDF editors very often, so it's a pretty safe bet. The nice thing about using PDF is that your file can't be altered then, whereas if you save it as a Microsoft Word document and send that to them, they can open it in Word and change it. So I usually send things in PDF if I don't want anybody to edit them. So I'm going to do that. And then the 2 is, of course, their email address of the person you're sending it to. So for this tutorial, I'm just going to send it to myself so I can show you what it looks like when it's actually sent. And my subject is just the name of my document. I can change that if I want, but I'm going to leave it. And then message is just a quick brief message. So. And then here it says send a copy to myself. If you check this box, it's going to send the email to the person or people that are in this to line, or it's going to send, and it's also, I'm sorry, going to send to yourself. It's going to send to your email that's registered to this account. You can send it to more than one person too if you want to, by just simply typing in a second email address. So I'll type in my old email address that I don't use anymore. And it's going to send to these people, and if I click here, it's also going to send to myself, and I can hit send. And it's sending. Once that goes away, you can assume that it is sent. Now, if I go to my email, I can actually prove to you that it came to my email. I'm going to open it. Here's the message that I created. And then down at the bottom of the email, just like any attachment you would send in an email, it's going to be towards the bottom. You can click on it. It's going to show you a preview if you're in Google. you can also download it. But this is what it's going to look like to the person that's receiving it. And if you were to print it, it should look very similar to this. So those are the basics today that I'm showing you in this first tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me by email at garshinskyh@portage.k12.wi.us. You can find me in the staff directory under middle school. I hope you learned something new today. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.